Welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be looking at Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick.
Oh, yeah. A classic.
It is a classic. And it's set in this really interesting dystopian future. Like imagine Earth after a nuclear war.
Right.
Most people have left. They've gone to Mars. And the people who are left behind, they're sharing this world with these androids that are so advanced that they're almost impossible to tell apart from humans.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find so fascinating about this book. It
Yeah.
really blurs those lines between what is human and what is artificial.
Exactly. And I've been doing a lot of research, reading different analyses and articles about the book, looking at everything from like the historical context. It was published in 1968.
Right, in the middle of the Cold War.
Exactly. So there are definitely some Cold War anxieties kind of woven into this story.
Oh, absolutely. The fear of technology, the threat of nuclear annihilation.
Yeah, and also like what it means to be human in a world that's becoming increasingly technological and dehumanized.
Right.
So we're going to look at the themes and kind of the philosophical ideas that the book explores and also its cultural impact.
But yeah, this book has had a huge impact.
I mean, Blade Runner, right?
Exactly. Blade Runner is based on this book, and it's become this iconic film in its own right.
Yeah, but before we get into all of that, I have one big question for you.
Okay.
What does it really mean to be human?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this book really forces you to confront that question head on.
It does. It
Yeah.
really makes you think about what makes us human, what sets us apart from machines. And it does it in a way that's both thrilling because it is a sci-fi story.
Right.
There's action, there's suspense, but it's also deeply thought-provoking.
It's not just a simple action-adventure story.
Yeah.
It really gets under your skin and stays with you long after you finish reading it.
Absolutely. So to kind of set the stage for people who maybe haven't read the book, let's paint a picture of this future world. What does it look like? What's the vibe?
Okay, so imagine this Earth is covered in dust from nuclear fallout. Cities are mostly abandoned. The air is thick and heavy. There's this sense of decay and this longing for something better. And for those who can afford it, that something better is Mars.
Right, Mars is like the promised land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's this pristine, unspoiled world where humans can start over. And it's this constant temptation for the people who are stuck on Earth.
Yeah, like this constant reminder of what they've lost and what they're missing out on.
Exactly.
And it's interesting, too, because one of the things that Dick really emphasizes in the book is this idea that in this world, owning a real animal has become a status symbol.
Oh, yeah, because animals are so rare.
Right? Like they're incredibly valuable.
Because most of them have died out in the nuclear war. So if you can afford to own and care for a real animal, it's a sign that you've made it.
Right. You're one of the lucky few who can escape the dust and the decay and have this connection to something living and breathing.
Right. And for most people who can't afford a real animal, they have to settle for electric animals.
Electric animals.
Yeah, like robotic pets that are designed to look and act exactly like real animals.
Whoa. That's wild. Like you could have a pet dog that's actually a machine.
Yeah, and some of them are so realistic that it's hard to tell the difference, and that raises a whole other set of questions.
Right. Like what does that say about us as humans if we're so willing to replace real animals with machines?
Exactly. And what does it say about our capacity for empathy? Are we so disconnected from the natural world that even our pets have become simulations?
Wow. It's kind of a scary thought.
It is. It's one of those things that makes this book so unsettling and so relevant to our own lives, even though it was written decades ago.
Yeah, because even though we don't have electric animals yet,
Yeah.
we do have all sorts of other simulations and distractions that can keep us from really connecting with the world around us.
Right. We have social media, we have virtual reality, we have all these ways to escape from the present moment and from the messiness of real life.
So in a way, we're already kind of living in that world that Philip K. Dick imagined back in 1968.
I think so. And that's what makes this book so powerful. It's not just a story about the future. It's a reflection of our own anxieties and our own desires. And it forces us to ask some hard questions about what it means to be human in a world that's constantly changing.
Right. And those questions become even more urgent when you consider the androids themselves.
Oh, yeah. Because the androids in this book aren't like the clunky robots you see in some sci-fi movies.
Right.
They're incredibly sophisticated. They look like humans. They talk like humans. They even think like humans. And that's where the central conflict of the story comes in.
Yeah, because our main character, Rick Deckard, he's a bounty hunter. And his job is to track down and retire these rogue androids that have escaped back to Earth.
Right. And retire is really just a euphemism for kill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So right from the start, you have this moral dilemma.
Hmm.
Like, is it okay to kill something that's so human-like?
Right. And how do you even know for sure if something is an android or a human?
That's a great question, especially when they're so good at blending in.
And that's where the Voight-Kampff test comes in.
The Voight-Kampff test.
Yeah, it's this test that's designed to measure empathy responses.
I remember reading about that. It's
Yeah.
like they ask you these questions and they monitor your physiological reactions.
Right, like your pupil dilation, your heart rate, things like that.
And they use that to determine whether you're capable of genuine empathy, which they believe is a uniquely human trait.
Right, so if you fail the Voight-Kampff test, it means you're an android.
Wow. So basically, your own capacity for empathy could be the key to proving that you're human.
That's the idea. And that's one of the things that I find so mind-blowing about this book. It really makes you question what it means to feel, what it means to be alive, and whether those things are truly unique to humans.
Yeah, it's like Dick is pushing us to expand our definition of what it means to be human
Yeah.
and to consider the possibility that maybe empathy isn't just something we're born with, but something that we can cultivate and develop.
Right. And maybe that's the key to surviving in a world that's becoming increasingly artificial and dehumanized.
Yeah, maybe empathy is the one thing that can save us from becoming like the machines we create.
It's a powerful message, and it's one of the many reasons why Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep remains such a relevant and thought-provoking book, even today.
Absolutely. It's a book that stays with you,
It does.
and it makes you question everything you thought you knew about the world and about yourself.
And that's what great science fiction does, isn't it? It challenges our assumptions and expands our understanding of what's possible.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And sometimes it even helps us to see ourselves more clearly.
Right.
Well, we've just scratched the surface of this book,
We have.
and there's so much more to explore. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. You know, it's funny. We were just talking about how the world in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep
Mhm.
is like full of simulations. And it makes me think like even today we have all these ways to create perfect, simulations of ourselves in our own lives.
Like on social media.
Yeah,
Yeah.
social media for sure. Or even like just the way we present ourselves to the world.
Right, like we're always trying to put our best foot forward.
Yeah. We curate these perfect little snapshots of our lives.
And it's interesting because the book really taps into this human desire for control, for perfection, even if it means sacrificing authenticity.
Yeah, it's like we're so obsessed with the idea of perfection that we forget what it means to be real, to be vulnerable, to be flawed.
And that's one of the things that I find so disturbing about the world that Dick creates in this book. It's like everyone is striving for this unattainable ideal. And in the process, they're losing touch with what it means to be human.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And speaking of what it means to be human, I'd love to kind of dive a little deeper into the philosophical side of the book.
Okay.
We mentioned existentialism earlier,
Mhm.
but I think it's worth exploring how those ideas really play out in the story.
Well, think about Deckard's job.
Right. He's a bounty hunter,
Right. He's literally hunting down and killing androids.
which are so human-like.
Exactly. And that forces him to confront some really heavy questions about the nature of life, the value of life.
Right. Like what gives him the right to decide who lives and who dies?
Exactly. And is there even a difference between a human life and an android life?
And I think that ties into existentialism because it's all about grappling with those big questions. Like, what is the meaning of life?
Right. What is our purpose? Why are we here?
And how do we make choices when everything feels so uncertain, so potentially meaningless?
And those are questions that I think everyone struggles with at some point in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just something that's limited to science fiction.
Right. It's a universal human experience.
And I think Dick does a brilliant job of exploring those existential themes through the character of Deckard, because he's not a hero in the traditional sense.
Right. He's a very flawed character.
Yeah, he's conflicted. He's struggling with his own sense of morality.
And he's constantly questioning his own actions.
Yeah, like, is he doing the right thing? Is he on the right side?
And those are questions that I don't think there are any easy answers to.
No. And I think that's what makes the book so compelling, because it doesn't try to give us easy answers. It just presents us with these complex questions and forces us to grapple with them ourselves.
And I think that's a hallmark of great science fiction.
Yeah, it's not about escapism. It's about holding up a mirror to our own lives and making us think about the choices we make and the values we hold.
And I think that's why Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is still so relevant today, even though it was written over 50 years ago.
Absolutely. It's a timeless story that speaks to something deep within us.
Right. It taps into our fears, our hopes, our anxieties about the future.
And it makes us question what it means to be human in a world that's constantly changing.
Right. And I think one of the things that Dick suggests in the book is that maybe empathy is the key to holding on to our humanity.
Empathy.
Yeah, like the ability to connect with others, to understand their feelings, to share their experiences.
But in the world of the book, empathy seems to be in short supply.
Yeah, it's like this precious commodity that's becoming increasingly rare.
Right? And people are turning to all sorts of things to try and fill that void.
Like the electric animals.
Right. The electric animals are like the symbol of our desire for connection, but also our fear of real intimacy.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like we want the comfort of companionship without the messiness of real relationships.
And then there's Mercerism.
Oh, yeah, Mercerism. That's a whole other layer of the book.
Yeah. Can you explain Mercerism for people who maybe haven't read the book?
So Mercerism is this virtual reality religion that allows people to experience a kind of shared empathy.
Shared empathy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they use these devices called empathy boxes.
Empathy boxes.
Yeah, and when you hold onto an empathy box, you can literally feel the pain and suffering of Wilbur Mercer, who is this mysterious figure who's kind of like a prophet or a guru.
So it's like a digital empathy machine.
Yeah, kind of.
Hmm.
And it's really popular in the world of the book because it gives people a sense of connection that they're not finding anywhere else.
But it also raises some really interesting questions about the nature of faith and the role of technology in our lives.
Oh, absolutely. Like, is it possible to experience genuine empathy through a machine?
Right. And if so, does it even matter where that empathy comes from?
And what does it say about us if we're so desperate for connection that we're willing to turn to a machine to provide it?
Wow. Those are some heavy questions.
They are. And I don't think there are any easy answers.
No, but I think that's what makes the book so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it forces us to confront those questions head on.
Right. And to think critically about the role that technology is playing in our own lives.
Yeah. And whether it's helping us to connect with each other or actually driving us further apart.
And that brings us back to the central question of the book. What does it mean to be human?
Right. What does it mean to be human in a world where the lines between real and artificial are becoming increasingly blurred?
And where technology is constantly evolving and challenging our assumptions about what it means to be alive, to feel, to experience the world.
And I think that's a question that we're all going to have to grapple with in the years to come.
Yeah, because the world is only going to get more complex, more technological, more interconnected.
And it's up to us to decide how we want to navigate that world and what kind of future we want to create.
Right, a future where we embrace our humanity and our capacity for empathy.
Or a future where we become more and more like the machines we create.
That's the choice that we all face.
Okay.
And it's a choice that I think Divider's dream of electric sheep really forces us to confront.
Absolutely. It's a powerful book, a disturbing book, and a book that I think everyone should read.
I agree.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
But there's still one more piece of the puzzle that we need to talk about. And that's the ending of the book.
The ending.
Yeah? Because the ending is really what ties everything together.
Right. It's what gives the book its lasting impact.
Exactly. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. All right. So we're back, and we've been talking all about this world where it's hard to tell what's real and what's not, and about Deckard, who's hunting these androids that are so lifelike. And I gotta know, like, what happens at the end? Does Deckard figure everything out?
Well, the ending of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, it's definitely not a neat and tidy kind of ending.
Okay, so it's not like a Hollywood ending where everything gets wrapped up in a bow.
No, not at all. It's actually very ambiguous, and it leaves a lot of questions unanswered, which is part of what makes it so powerful.
Okay, so what are some of those big questions that the ending raises?
Well, one of the most interesting things about the ending is Deckard's encounter with Wilbur Mercer.
Oh, yeah, Wilbur Mercer. The guy from Mercerism, the whole empathy box thing.
Exactly. The mysterious figure at the heart of this whole religion.
Yeah.
And for most of the book, Mercer is just this virtual presence, right?
Like, he only exists inside the empathy boxes.
But when Deckard meets Mercer, it's not in the empathy box.
Oh, really? So they
Well-
meet in real life?
Well, it's not entirely clear. It's kind of like a vision or a dream.
Okay, so it's another one of those moments where the lines between reality and simulation start to blur.
Exactly. And this encounter with Mercer really shakes Deckard to his core because Mercer seems to know things about Deckard that he shouldn't know. And he offers Deckard this kind of cryptic guidance.
Like, what kind of guidance?
Well, he tells Deckard that he needs to accept what he is. and to embrace the world as it is, even with all its flaws and imperfections.
That's interesting, because it kind of goes against everything that Deckard has been striving for up to this point.
Right. He's been trying to control the world, to impose order on chaos, but Mercer is telling him that he needs to let go of that control.
To just accept things as they are.
Exactly. And to find a way to live in this messy, imperfect world without trying to change it.
So how does Deckard react to that?
Well, it's not like he suddenly has this epiphany and everything becomes clear.
No.
He's still struggling. He's still confused. But there's this sense that he's starting to see the world differently.
Like he's starting to question his own beliefs, his own values.
Right. And that's one of the things that I find so fascinating about the ending of this book. It's not about providing answers. It's about raising questions and about challenging the reader to think for themselves.
Yeah. To come to their own conclusions about what the book means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's such a powerful ending, because it stays with you long after you finish reading it.
It makes you think.
It does. And then there's the whole thing with the electric toad.
The electric toad. What's that all about?
Well, remember how owning a real animal is like this huge status symbol in the world of the book?
Yeah. Like it's a sign that you're wealthy and compassionate.
Right. But at the end of the book, Deckard finds this electric toad.
Like a robotic toad.
Yeah. And at first he's really disappointed because he thinks it's real.
Oh, so he's hoping that he's finally found a real animal.
Exactly. But then he realizes that it's just a machine.
Oh, man. That's got to be a bummer.
It is. And it kind of reinforces this idea that everything in this world is artificial. Even the things that are supposed to bring us joy and comfort.
Right. Like even our pets are just machines.
But here's the thing. Deckard doesn't throw the toad away.
He doesn't.
No. He takes it home with him.
Really? Why would he do that?
Well, I think it's because he's starting to realize that the distinction between real and artificial isn't as clear-cut as he thought it was.
Okay.
Like maybe it doesn't really matter if something is real or fake as long as it brings you some kind of meaning or connection.
So maybe the electric toad represents something more than just a fake animal.
Right. Maybe it represents Deckard's acceptance of the world as it is, with all its imperfections and artificiality.
And maybe it even represents his acceptance of himself.
Yeah. Because, let's be honest, Deckard is not exactly a perfect human being.
Right. He's made some questionable choices throughout the book.
And maybe by accepting the electric toad, he's also accepting his own flaws and imperfections.
That's a really interesting interpretation.
And I think it's one of the many ways that the ending of this book can be read.
So what's the ultimate takeaway then? What do you think Philip K. Dick was trying to say with this ambiguous ending?
Well, I think he was trying to challenge us to think critically about our own relationship with technology and with the world around us.
Right.
To question our assumptions about what's real, what's valuable, and what it means to be human.
Because in a world where technology is constantly evolving and blurring the lines between reality and simulation,
Yeah.
those questions are becoming more and more important.
Exactly. And I think Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is a book that can really help us to grapple with those questions.
And the book that makes you think.
It does. And it's a book that stays with you long after you finish reading it.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
And I think we've just scratched the surface of this incredibly complex and thought-provoking book.
I agree. There's so much more to explore.
So if you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend checking out the book yourself, and also the film adaptation Blade Runner, which is a classic in its own right.
Definitely. And let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this amazing book.
Yeah, join the conversation. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.